All right, let's talk about machine learning, but forget all the scary code and the crazy jargon for a minute. I want you to think about it like this. It's a brand new, powerful toolbox for your business. These are tools that can seriously help you work smarter, faster, and maybe even see what's coming around the corner. So come on, let's open this thing up and see what's inside.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Can your business predict the future? I know. It sounds a little bit like sci-fi, right? But what if I told you that predicting things, like your sales, what your customers are going to do next, or even spotting fraud before it happens, is way more possible than you think? Well, that's exactly the promise of the tools we're about to unpack.
Okay, so let's dive into this toolbox. Right at the heart of it, you're going to find machine learning, or ML, as you'll hear it called. It's really the engine that powers so many of the AI breakthroughs we hear about every day. And believe me, it is incredibly useful when you put it to work in a business.
So what is it really? Well, the core idea is pretty simple. These are systems that learn directly from data. Instead of a programmer sitting down and writing a million if-then rules, you just feed the system a whole bunch of historical data and it starts to figure out the patterns all on its own. And this is absolutely crucial for things like predictive analytics, automation, and creating those really personal customer experiences we all want. It's all about making smarter business decisions, but using your data to do the heavy lifting.
All right, so the most common type of machine learning you're going to run into is called supervised learning. Now, don't let that name scare you off. It's actually a really simple concept. Think of it like you're teaching a student, but you're giving them the answer key. You show the machine thousands, maybe millions of examples where you already know the right answer. That's what we call labeled data, and it just learns the rules to get to that right answer all by itself.
And this answer key method, this is where it really shines in business. You need to forecast next quarter's sales? Yep. You want to predict which of your customers might be thinking about leaving? For sure. Or how about flagging a credit card transaction as potentially fraudulent? These are all perfect, and I mean perfect, jobs for supervised learning. Why? Because you have tons of historical data on what happened in the past, and you want to predict what's going to happen in the future.
But hold on, you don't just dive in head first. A really successful machine learning project follows a pretty clear, structured path, just like you see here. It always starts with defining the actual business problem you're trying to solve. Then you get into collecting and, this is a big one, meticulously cleaning up your data. That fourth step, feature engineering, sounds technical, but it's really just about picking the most important clues or signals in your data for the model to learn from. Only after all that do you actually train the model. And you're still not done. Then you have to evaluate it, deploy it, and keep an eye on it. This whole process, this discipline, is what turns a cool science experiment into something that actually delivers value.
Okay, so your data is prepped and ready to go. Now it's time for the fun part, picking the right tool for the job. Your toolbox has a bunch of different algorithms, and each one is designed for a specific kind of task. So let's take a quick tour of a few of the most popular ones you'll find.
First up, we've got linear regression. This is your classic, your go-to tool whenever you need to predict a specific number. Think forecasting revenue, estimating shipping costs, or figuring out the right price for a product. It's super popular because it's pretty straightforward. And this is a huge plus in business. It's highly interpretable. That just means you can easily explain why the model made the prediction it did. That is a game changer when you have to justify decisions.
Next in the toolbox, we have decision trees. So if linear regression is for predicting a number, decision trees are all about making a choice, a yes or a no, a this category or that category. Think about a system for approving loans. The model basically asks a series of questions, kind of like a flowchart, to arrive at a final decision. People love them because they're simple and, just like the name suggests, you can literally look at the tree and see the exact decision-making logic. Super clear.
But what happens when you need, extreme accuracy? Well, that's when you reach for the power tools, ensemble learning methods. These things are just brilliant. The way they work is they combine the predictions from a whole bunch of different models to come up with one single, super robust, and way more accurate result. For those really high-stakes tasks where getting it right is absolutely critical, we're talking fraud detection, demand forecasting, ensemble methods are very often your best bet. So, you've picked your tool, you've built your model, you're feeling good, but how do you actually know if it's any good? That brings us to a really crucial step, measuring its success. Did the tool actually do the job you hired it for? You have to measure its performance to know for sure if it's ready for the real world and if it's actually meeting your business goals. And, how you measure success totally depends on what kind of model you built. For a regression model that's predicting sales, for instance, you might use something called mean absolute error, which sounds complicated, but it literally just tells you, on average, how many dollars your forecast was off by. Simple. But for a classification model that's spotting fraud, you look at things like accuracy and precision. You're asking, of all the transactions we flagged as fraud, what percentage did we actually get right? It's all about connecting that technical metric back to a real business question. That's what makes it meaningful.
Okay, finally, before we let you loose with these tools, every good toolbox comes with some safety warnings, right? Well, in machine learning, these warnings are the common pitfalls that can trip up even the most experienced teams. Understanding them from the get-go is essential for building solutions that aren't just accurate, but also robust, fair, and reliable.
So let's quickly run through a few of the big ones to watch for. First, there's overfitting. This is like a student who crams for a test by just memorizing the practice questions. They ace the practice test, but they completely fail the real exam because they never actually learn the concepts. Then there's biased data, and this one is so important. If your training data isn't a good reflection of the real world, say you only use data from one city when your business operates nationally, your model is going to make bad and maybe even unfair predictions for everyone else. Just being aware that these challenges exist is the first huge step to building systems you can actually trust.
And you know, all of this really brings us to the main takeaway, the big idea I want you to leave with. Success in machine learning isn't just about picking the coolest, flashiest algorithm. It's about the entire process, from start to finish. The quality of your data, how carefully you prepare it, and how honestly you evaluate your model's performance, that is what truly determines whether you get real value out of this.
So there you have it. The machine learning toolbox is officially open. You've seen some of the most important tools, you understand the process, and you know the safety warnings to look out for. The only question left is, what are you going to build first?